Alright guys, welcome back. This is the video on the first round of play for Negen core. I already got the opponents set up over there and we're ready to go. Everything's been laid out, so now the first round begins. In this particular game, we're just going to have Lucky go first, just to show you an example of how it goes. So you'll pick one of the 3 line cards that you set before we started playing, and you'll just flip it over and then resolve the actions that it says to. So I'll just go ahead and flip this one. As you can see, it is cross dash with a cost of 0. I mentioned before that all of these cards will have a different number on them depicting how much they cost to use. That cost is paid by what's known as the discharge pile, which I'll get into in just a moment here. So you're going to want to start off the game with a couple of 0 cost on your line, so that way you can do some actions, because if you flip a card over that you can't pay for with its cost, then it's considered a dud card and there's no effect that takes place with that. So for this first turn, I use cross dash, which costs 0 and allows Lucky to move to an adjacent space, and I will go ahead and move Lucky up just 1 right there. And then once that's done, that effect's been resolved. That card stays flipped face up in that position for right now, and then the turn goes over to the opponent here. So Duster would go ahead and pick a card to move, and he'll go ahead and he'll just use his movement card, if I could find out which one that is. Alright, there we go. He has his rush tackle, so he'll go ahead and move up forward 2 spots, and then once his card resolves, it basically goes back into my control, and I'll choose another command card to use. So this method of flipping the cards and resolving their effects continues until all players have flipped all of their cards. So let's just go ahead and do that now. Okay, so both players have now used up all of their cards. Some of them had a cost on them that they couldn't use, so they were just considered a dud card. So now that that round is over, there's no other cards that could be played. At this point, you would have the ability, if you wanted to, continue to use your reserve cards, but we're not going to do that for this first round of play. We're just going to act it out like nobody wants to do anything like that yet. So in this case, Duster was the last one to go, so he will be the first one to go in the next turn, which gives him an advantage because he'll technically have 2 turns in a row, which you can use to dish out a lot of damage or get yourself in a better position to hit the enemy in the next turn. So now that the turn has ended, we're going to go into what's called the discharge phase. After all of these cards are flipped face up, we're going to discharge one of these cards from our line if we so choose. To do that, you'll basically select one of these cards. In this case, I'll just choose this one here, and you'll put it off to the side in your discharge pile. Now you could do that only once at the end of each of these turns. So they'll go ahead, and Duster will do the same and put one off to the side there. And now we're only left with 2 cards in here. So what we do now is we'll set up for the next turn by going through our deck here and selecting one of those cards and place it face down here so that you have a maximum of 3 on your line. Some card abilities will say, hey, you can take this card and throw it into your discharge pile as a way to cycle cards a lot faster and play your stronger cards, because typically the stronger cards will cost a lot more. So now we could see here that this card has a cost of 1, and now that we have 1 in our discharge pile, we can go ahead and we'll be able to play this the next turn and activate it without any kind of issues. So we'll go ahead and we can flip all of these back face down. I'm just going to go ahead and use my special powers, and bam, here we are. Everything's been flipped down. We have cards in our discharge piles here, so we're ready to start the next turn. But before that, I want to make a couple of quick notes here about the discharge piles. The cards that you put in a discharge pile remain there for the game until you have an ability that allows you to return those cards to your hand. Now, all these Negen will have some ability that allows you to do that and cycle through, so you're not just stuck with all your cards in the discharge pile, leaving you without any other options to play. It's all about strategy and which cards you want to charge and discharge and how to cycle through. It all depends on you and your opponent. So now that we've gone through the basics of this, what would happen next is that it would flip over to Duster's turn to go first, since he went last in the last round. He'll go first in the next turn, and we'll just continue this cycle on until somebody's dead. So in the next video, we're going to go over a couple of the more advanced cards in the game, particularly the reserve cards here, because I haven't really touched on those yet. So stay tuned. Thanks, guys.